recycling program run by the sanitation department. If you live in New York City, you are required by law to separate your bottles, your cans, your paper, and your plastic, and it all gets picked up by the sanitation department and recycled. But that was not always the case. New York City was one of the last cities in the country to put a recycling program in place. And as late as the late 1980s, there was no recycling program in New York City. And all of New York City's garbage, bottles, cans, paper, plastic, and organic waste alike, was being dumped at a giant landfill at the far end of Staten Island on top of a wetland called Fresh Kills, which at that time was literally a mountain of garbage. It was 3,000 feet high. It was the highest point on the eastern seaboard, and it was made out of garbage. And at this time, the city council was being lobbied by environmental groups to pass a law mandating a citywide compulsory recycling program. And the city sanitation department was resisting every step of the way, saying, no, you can't do that. You can't recycle in New York City. It's too big, it's too chaotic, forget about it, you can't recycle here. One of the things the environmental groups could point to is the fact that people were already recycling in New York City. At that time, La Plata Cultural and some of the other community gardens in the neighborhood served as volunteer recycling drop-off points. People in the neighborhood who wanted to recycle because they had an ecological consciousness would voluntarily separate their bottles, their cans, their paper, and their plastic, and they bring it here to La Plata Cultural, and the people around the garden would find a place to get it recycled. And finally, in 1989, with this example kind of serving as a model, the city council passed the ordinance, and the sanitation department was required by law to put in place a mandatory citywide recycling program that we still have today. Now, what we're hoping is going to happen is this history is going to repeat itself with composting. Because one of the good things that Mayor Michael Bloomberg did, God knows I don't like everything he did, but one of the good things that Mayor Michael Bloomberg did is he put a composting pilot program in place, where the city actually began to, the city sanitation department actually began to pick up organic household waste from households and apartment buildings. It started in a couple of neighborhoods in Brooklyn, in Fort Greene and Park Slope, and it was just beginning to spread to the rest of the city when it was shut down by the pandemic 4 years ago. But it's just being revived now, and it's actually now it's moving ahead very rapidly. And the city sanitation department has actually established a pilot plant at the site of the landfill on Staten Island, where they're processing all of that collected organic waste into soil, which in turn is distributed back to parks and gardens around the city. So that's a sign of progress, of things moving in the right direction. And there's definitely a sense of history repeating itself, because just last summer, about a year ago, the city council once again went over the head of the mayor, went over the head of Mayor Eric Adams, and passed a law mandating that the composting program has got to go citywide and become compulsory over the course of the next couple of years. So right now, I would say between people like me, I bring my compost to the community garden, and people who are participating in the city pilot program, there's probably a few 100,000 people in New York City who are composting, and that's a good start. But it doesn't have that much of an impact on the city's methane footprint on a global scale. It's more important as a political statement of what's possible. If all 8 million of us New Yorkers were composting, that would really have some impact on the city's methane footprint on a global scale. And hopefully we're going to be looking at maybe 2 or 3 years down the line. The composting program is going to go citywide, it's going to be compulsory, and the all 8 million of us New Yorkers will be composting.